that you're having, all of this really is taking your time. So when you have that ideal client, everything feels easy and you feel energetic and you're a good fit with them. But when you take someone just because, it's not just the time, it's your energy and it's everything
Yeah.
else. So just making sure that I really have it defined who I can serve really, really well right now. And realizing that if I don't have enough of those people, I got to get out there, got to hustle around and
Yeah.
find some
Yeah.
new ones.
Exactly. And I think
Mhm.
this is so cool because I'm the same way with you. Like, there's no lesson planning when I take those kids from first, second, and third grade. I
Yeah.
can identify their gaps. I know exactly what we're going to work on. I know what tools to bring on in to be able to close those gaps. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I don't like to work with some of those older kids is there's a little bit more outside of the box creativity that has to come on in. But I do kind of like I know exactly what I'm going to work on, and there's no guessing here. There, this is it. Like, this is what you get. So I think that's perfect. It decreases the amount of time that you need to spend on your business when you have the right client that you're working on. Has anybody else found that with their business?
Well, for me, I only work with like I said, the high school and the college kids. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm with that, those teenage levels and things. The only thing I would say, I don't mind working with any student. The only thing I would say my boundary is I do stress for my students to come prepared. That means with chemistry, you need to come with your calculator, you need to come with your periodic table, you need to come with your supplementary information that you received from your teacher. Now, if you didn't receive any extra supplementary from your teacher, I do have supplementary material that I do send to some of my students if they say they've never seen this before or something like that. But yes, I did have to. Well, I cut one student off. I cut him off because he was just never prepared. He would, anytime he got on a lesson, he was always kind of laying down and stuff like that. And I just kind of had to talk with him, and so he kind of straightened up a little bit, but then he kind of got to where he was like late on lessons and stuff like that. And I explained to him that, okay, well, you're still being charged. And so after a while, I was just like, after like twice, I finally said, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to tutor you anymore because I've had too many issues. And I said, I take my tutoring business serious. And if you're not going to be serious about your education, then I'm not the right tutor for you.
Mhm.
And so he waited a few days and then he messaged me back and said he's sorry about, this and this and that. And so I said, well, before I agreed to tutor you again, I wrote down a list of rules again for him. I said, well, you need to sign this and agree to this. I said, if not, then I won't be able to tutor you.
Mhm.
And so after that, I didn't have any more problems out of him. He straightened up. Anytime he was on a lesson, he was sitting up straight and paying attention and actually learning. And he passed his chemistry class. So
Oh, that's awesome. It is about expectations and holding to those expectations and then
mhm,
being willing to have consequences sometimes if people are not following those expectations. It is a hard
right.
thing to do. It's not
Hmm.
easy, right? Because and it's a little different too with the older kids versus the younger kids as well. I mean, my younger kids, I always tell my own kids, they're like, "Do your kids like working with you?" I'm like, "They like working with me, but do they want to tutor? Probably not." Like, who
Right.
wants to like tutor?
Hmm.
Like, but they come and they do what they need to do, and that's what I expect, right? Like, so if I've got a kid who comes on, he doesn't really want to be there, but he's still doing exactly what he needs to do, then I have a pretty low bar when it comes to that because I understand that with the younger kids, their parents are making them be there. With the older kids, it does have to come into like, you have to want this. I cannot help you if you do not, set yourself up for success. But with the younger kids, there's things that I can do that will keep them motivated, engaged, and doing that kind of stuff, even when they don't want to. But it is very
Hmm.
different with those older kids. So it's
It
important to
is.
really understand your audience and what the expectations are. And do you have realistic expectations for the age of student that you're working with?
Right. And I had one student once, and she was just kept falling asleep. And I ended the session. I told her, I can't do this. I can't. I ended the session. It wasn't about the money because I wasn't helping you at that point. And if
Yeah.
I can't help you and you're not paying attention, then I feel like I'm not doing my job. And I'm not just finna sit here and take your parents' money because you're not paying attention. So I ended the lesson. I messaged the parents, and that was just the end of that. I just couldn't do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
so I work with older kids as well, and I take a little bit more because I know that the families are making an investment because my prices
Mhm.
are, I would consider them high. It's an investment. And so I spend probably a little more time than I did in the very beginning in the intake process before anybody pays me. So I have a session, I have just like, 20, 30 minutes with the parents, and I have 20 or 30 minutes with the high school student or the college student separately. And what I'm trying to do during that is on the parent side, I'm trying to screen and listen out for signals that the parent is mostly interested in the kid having in I'm trying to suss out with the parent where their goals really lie. And if the parent really just wants their kid to get their grades up fast, they're not the right fit for me because I work with kids who typically have chronic issues with procrastination, getting homework in on time. And there's at that point, most of the kids I work with have ADHD or other learning differences that create some static between what the school is demanding and what they believe they can do. And so my work takes a little bit of time in uncovering those limiting beliefs and trying to help them develop habits that help them first feel better and then do better and develop more confidence. Okay, that's a really long explanation to say if the parent is mostly interested in seeing those test grades pop up real quick, then they're not a good fit. And if the parent is also, I'm getting the sense that the parent is quite, what's the word, intensive in doing a lot for their child, that's also not going to be a great fit, because my message to parents is also to like back off a little bit so that your kid can step up. And and if they're really uncomfortable with that, it's not going to be a good fit. So I do a lot of upfront work with the parent on that side, to make sure to screen out who those fits. And on the student side, what I'm listening out for, because high school students also don't want to be working. Most of them also don't want to spend time working with a tutor, especially if school has not been easy for them. And it brings up a lot of feelings of stress and inadequacy and, all of those not enough feelings. So with the student, what I'm listening out for is, do they really feel like there is a problem here they want to feel like needs to be solved in order for their life to work better? If they're in a place where they're uncomfortable with the way things are, I can work with them. But if they're in a place where they're like, well, I'm actually pretty cool with this right now, it's my parents that have the problem, then that's not a good fit for me either. Because, and I tell the kid right up front too, listen, it is zero fun to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with me. And so, and I just am at a place in my life right now where I don't want work that isn't fun. And there's got to have, and I'm not available for that right now. So I want you to do some real good thinking about whether or not this is something you really want. And if it's not, I want you to tell your parents. And if you have trouble telling your parents, and then I ask them, like, how good are you at telling your parents things that you don't think they want to hear? And then if they're like, well, I don't really like to do that, I'm like, okay, then send me the email and there will be a reason why we can't work together.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
because I just really am not available for it. But a lot of that also comes from, I don't know that I was like that in the very beginning, because I didn't know I was going to have enough kids to work, and so it also took me building up a little bit of confidence in there's plenty of clients out there for me.
I was going to ask you that, like, was that something that you developed over time and gained clarity from with working with some of the wrong clients that helped you get closer to the clarity of who is that ideal student that I do want to work with, who can I get the best results with, who can I make the most gains with? I was curious about that, and that's exactly what's happened. And you guys, Trisha is actually speaking at our next conference that we're doing, Impact 2. Woo! So you definitely want to check that out. I know Beth put a link inside of our description, and you're going to get to hear some of the amazing strategies that she uses with her students during the sessions, which are they're mind blown. You're gonna be like, what? They're awesome. So thank you so much for the time that you spent with speaking during Impact 2, with even coming on today to share how you have grown as a tutor with your boundaries, and the loving way in which you do that, even with the students, like asking them, how comfortable do you feel telling them that, and then having them write it in an email, and then you approaching the parents so that it's all good. That's
Well, the good
amazing.
news is I've never actually had to do that. So, we'll see.
Well, if it ever happens in the future.
Right. I do tell them that's available to them, but nobody's ever yet, as of yet, they haven't taken me up on that. So.
Okay, so then they decide they do want to work with you versus saying no, I don't want to work with you. That almost just saying that kind of convinces them, like for them to see how serious you are, and kind of setting those boundaries ahead of time about like, hey, do you really want this? Because I only really want to work with people that really want this.
Mhm.
I think that's awesome. I would have been your perfect student, Trisha, when I was in high school. I bought a program. Actually, I didn't buy it, but my parents did. It was on TV. I don't know if you ever saw this. It was called Where There's a Will, There's an A. Anybody else? Nobody
Mm-mm.
saw it. Okay,
No.
I'm just that
Cute
old. Okay.
name.
It was like one of the very first courses, but it was an online infomercial, and it was like, and it taught all study habits. And I looked at my parents like, I want A's, and I was like, I want that, and they're like, okay. And so they bought it for me, and I learned everything about how to study while I was in high school. And I struggled with comprehension growing up, so going on into high school, still with some of that comprehension issues that I had, learning those study skills actually really made learning a lot easier for me. And I still practice them today when I want to be able to learn different things. So it is so important that kids know how to study, and it's not something that's really taught in school. Any other boundaries that you guys set with your students? Could be what you charge, your hours, what students you take.
I have one idea actually. When you asked me to come on, I thought, oh yeah, I think I'd like to talk about kind of the abundance versus scarcity mindset, where we're referring to the amount of time that we have, and just the different decisions that we make there. So when we have a time abundance, we're usually very sloppy with our time, and we do a lot of things that we're not supposed to do, and we take clients we're not supposed to take. And, it feels like we're being productive, but not really in the right way. Where moving toward that scarcity, where you have a thriving business with a full schedule, it starts to become really clear who you're trying to target as your ideal client, who you want to work with, and kind of the easy road. The difficult part is that space between the time abundance and not having enough of it, and just making sure that we're always working toward marketing ourselves, and filling it with those proper students that we should be looking for kind of the easy path. But additionally, relating to the boundaries, one of the things that I've gotten better at is the days off that I do want to take. I think about what I want first and then make the modifications to my schedule. So previously, I used to I had one weekend off per month that had 2 days in a row. I was still working 5 days and off 2 days, and that's fine. But I would the other 3 weeks of the month, I would do like, oh, okay, I take Tuesday off here and Monday off there, so that my language students, they can still have 2 sessions per week. And, if it falls on one of their days, then it's okay. It's just 1 week out of the month. And then I started thinking about how much I really, really wanted to have 2 days off in a row, because I could only go somewhere for a weekend getaway. And, making that decision of, oh, I'm going to change my schedule, and I know it's going to affect this student and that student, and I don't know if they're going to be able to continue. I have changed my schedule, I don't know how many times over the past 2 years. Nobody has ever said anything ever. Like, they just go into your schedule and they're like, oh, you changed your day off. click and they choose another time and everything is good. So yeah, if anybody is like, people asking for sessions outside of what you have available, like, no, it's just no. Here's what I
Right.
have available. If you want to work with me and I have other students, or like in my case, people book just a few weeks in advance. It's like, book your sessions 2 months in advance. I don't care. Here's my schedule. But these are the days that I'm available. And it's really, really helped to have that kind of thinking about what I want, when I work best, designing my schedule around when I'm most productive, when I feel good, when I'm teaching, and just, yeah, designing the schedule you want. It's really, really important.
Now, how many of you guys are really good at on your day off setting boundaries on your business? I know I
Terrible.
suck at it. I suck at it. I suck at it. Like I'm still working on stuff with my business, but it's within the rest of the schedule. So I've got 3 kids, right? And it's like, okay, this kid, we're going here with this kid at this time, or we're going as a family over here at this time. And then it's like, okay, well, you got 2 hours over here where you can work on stuff if you want to. So it becomes more of a choice, but I really suck at being like, no, I absolutely will not pick up my email, my messenger, my computer. I really am terrible at that. So I'm so glad that you guys are all with me. But at the same time, like, give yourself some grace over the summer and make sure to take some time where you take a couple of weekends where you don't like look back on anything business related and just take that time for you. Whether like I take a week off in the summer. But because everybody is off doing their own thing, we go up north and we stay in a cabin. I kind of like do my business planning for the entire year, but I don't take any live students or live calls or do any of that kind of stuff. And so it's really a time for me to kind of decompress from my business and plan what do I want the next year of my business to look like. And it's so refreshing to be able to do that. But we also have to have that ability to just say, okay, for this weekend, I will not do anything business related.
I
That's not
I
easy.
I do it. I do it a lot where I'll take a weekend where I don't do anything. But for me, especially when school is in, I'm actually a Monday through Saturday person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of you said you work Monday through Wednesday, but Sundays are for me. I don't do anything Sundays where I get to go to church or I get to just
Yeah.
hang out, lounge around, and do whatever. Sundays are my day. I don't do anything. I don't do any schoolwork. I don't do anything at all. But I will work on Mondays through Saturdays. And the reason I like to keep like Fridays and Saturdays open because, like I said, I do have like a lot of high school kids, and then they have sports games, sports practices, which are, can run late and on the weekends. And so I do like to keep my Saturdays open for them, especially on the Fridays and Saturdays.
So we just had a comment inside that said, hey, everyone, my learning center for 10 plus years now, and I'm finally now ready to say no to the clients that are not meant for me. I love it. And another person, Beth, said, that's awesome, Stephanie. So important to figure out your ideal client, say no to others. I agree. And, I used to work 7 days a week when I first started my business. When you talk about Amy, that sloppy business, that was me. That was totally me. I
We've
would
all
just
been
like
there.
my students were all over the place. I would have a student at, a homeschool student at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I would have my next student at 3, and then I'd have one at 5 and 6 and 7. It was all over the place. And then I would take students on Friday nights. I would take students on Saturday mornings, and then this is how I like even logistically explained it to myself. You're technically getting a full day off because you don't work past 12 on Saturday and then you don't work again until 4 on Sunday. So that's 24 hours. But I also didn't have those consistent clients yet. I didn't have a huge number of clients at that point in time, and so I was willing to say yes to everything. So if you guys are there, just have grace on yourself and don't be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it all wrong. No, this has all come with clarity from us